Welcome to the Just Live podcast. I am your host, Olivia Stevens, and I'm inviting you in on my personal journey of learning and discovering how to live a life with more connection, joy, and purpose. I'll be sitting down with people from all walks of life to dive into topics including trauma, mental health, mindfulness, the nuances of love and relationships, and much more. I hope these conversations empower you to expand on what serves you, release what doesn't, and just live. Welcome back to another episode of the Just Live podcast. Sorry, my hair is soaking wet. I'm in a rush, but I really want to get this episode done because I've been falling behind again. But I'm feeling a burst of energy and excited to kind of share some things I've been going through and experiencing. And I hope that someone out there can relate, because that's the whole entire point of this thing. We're well into March. This is exciting. Spring is coming. It's like new beginnings. If anyone believes in astrology, this is actually the beginning of the year, not January. Anyway, I'm just going to jump right into something that I think a lot of people can relate to in one way or another. Anyone that's been in a significant relationship or a marriage, this might resonate. So thanks for listening as always. For anyone that's jumping in here that hasn't kind of listened to previous episodes, I started this podcast 2 years ago after going through a really bad breakup. I was in a long-term relationship. We had bought a house together. 8 months later, I found out he cheated on me. I made the choice to move out of the house because he had a young son, and I just felt like it would be a lot easier for me to leave. I also felt that another move would have a pretty significant impact on my ex's child, and I felt like that I wanted to try and avoid that if at all possible. So I moved out. We technically still own the house together 2 years later, because when we bought the house, interest rates were 3%, and when we broke up, they were double. And if anyone doesn't quite understand the process, in order to get your name off of, mortgage, you have to refinance. And when you refinance, you get the interest rate that, is currently being offered in the market. So when we broke up, rates were double. They were 6%, and obviously that's going to impact the payment and change the payment. And my ex made it very clear that that's not something he would be able to afford. And so if that wasn't an option, then he would have to move, if I wanted my name off of this property. So I made the choice to allow my name to stay on the property. That way he could keep the payment that we had and he could stay there and not have to move. So that was a choice that I made. And I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, obviously there's implications for that. The house is still in my credit. I can't go out and buy a primary residence because technically I already own one. Yada, yada, yada. I kind of wasn't really in a position to do that. So I just felt like this is fine. I'm just going to kind of ride this out. And, 6 months or a year down the road, we're going to get this taken care of. Well, 2 years have gone by and, interest rates are still at a staggering 7%. So it seemed pretty clear that he wasn't in a position to do anything. And I was just kind of continuing to allow things to stay the same just for the sake of making it easier for him and his son. Well, fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, and there's probably 3 texts that you do not want to receive. The first would be you're fired. The second would be we need to talk. And the third is, oh, hey, I saw that your ex got engaged on social media. And that was a text that I got while I was on vacation 2 weeks ago, just days before my birthday. Obviously, we've been broken up for over 2 years now. And of course, he has moved on. I know that. I recognize that. I understand that. But in that moment, when my friend decided to inform me, which For anyone out there, you don't need to tell anyone about what's going on in their ex's life. PSA, thank you. Not necessary. Don't need to know. We don't follow each other anymore on social media. Thank you. However, we still have this tie owning this house together. And so for me, I kind of felt immediately enraged because I was allowing things to stay the same and keeping my name on this property to help him out financially, to make it affordable for him to stay in this house and not have to sell and move with his child. And I'm like, what are you doing buying an engagement ring before like tying up this loose end? I thought that was really irresponsible and kind of unfair and rude. And so I sat on it for 24 hours, and the next day I was even more enraged and feeling like, here I am trying to be considerate, think about this other person's circumstances, make life easier for them, and they don't have the decency, or like they're not even taking the responsibility of closing this door, the right choice of getting my name off, refinancing, whatever it is, before taking these other steps, these big financial commitments, these big life commitments in your life. Anyway, I promise you this is not an episode about me complaining about my ex getting engaged. I'm happy that he's moved on. I want him to live his life. Everyone deserves to be happy, whatever. What's so frustrating to me was that I've continued to make the choice to put someone else's needs and circumstances and feelings before my own. I waited a day before saying anything, and I felt so much rage and anger. I was like, I have been holding this in for so long. Being tied to this house still has been like emotionally weighing on me, I think more than I've ever even realized. So often I find myself, or you may find yourself, keeping things in, suppressing what you're feeling for the sake of the status quo, for the sake of being a bigger person, for the sake of being like more conscious or more evolved, or like that doesn't bother me. But this was an instance where I was like, fuck this. I am going to say exactly how I feel, because if I don't, I think I might explode, and I need to get this out. I deserve to share how this has made me feel. So I texted him, a pretty long text telling him exactly how I felt, that I thought it was irresponsible and this is something he should have tied up, and it's bullshit that I've been helping him out and he couldn't think to, put an end and close this door in this chapter for me. So I shared that text. And whenever you do something like that and you share kind of honest feelings that may not come off as wise or grounded as you would like, there's always a little bit of like, ooh, why did I do that? Should I have done that? But anyway, I've talked before on this podcast about how I journal sometimes. It's a tool that I use to help, whether that's with the depression that I sometimes struggle with, or just kind of organizing my thoughts, dealing with that sort of thing. So I went back to the day after I found out that he got engaged and just kind of read what I reflected on, and I just wanted to read what I said to give a little context to this episode and what I'm going to talk about. So, March 14th, 2025. I'm reflecting on what I felt yesterday. The person I was. What does that version of me need? I was so angry. Today I feel sad, hurt, abandoned, and used. Part of me feels proud I spoke my truth, shared what I was really feeling, and part of me, of course, feels bad and embarrassed. Maybe I should have waited before reacting. But waited for what? Peace? For who? So that kind of brings me to what I want to talk about in this episode. It's really, for me, this theme or this idea of putting other people's needs before your own, and at what cost. I feel like I have found myself in a pattern of prioritizing other people's needs, their experience, what they're feeling, and their comfort at the expense of my own needs and experience. So I've spent, the last week or so reflecting and trying to understand, like, where does this come from? Why do I do this? And how can I start to change this pattern of people pleasing and suppressing like my needs for the sake of someone else's experience. I also think that it's a pattern of women especially to feel like they need to be graceful after a breakup. They have to like have this delicate dance around everyone else's experience, and they don't have a right to feel what they feel, and if they do, they can't express it. And I also want to talk about the emotional and psychological impact of unfinished business and having ties with exes, and maybe even carrying on relationships themselves for too long for the sake of someone else and their experience, maybe staying in a job you're not happy with because you're afraid of how it's going to impact the company or your team if you leave, and just basically the emotional toll that it takes putting other people and their peace before your own. So I had to really sit and think, why do people do this? Why do people put other people's needs before their own? Why do they suppress what they're feeling? Or, why do they stay in relationships longer, even if they feel deep down like something isn't right? I think there's a number of reasons for this. We can go all the way back to childhood. And if you grew up in an environment where you felt like it was your responsibility to keep things peaceful or keep the status quo, if there was kind of like turmoil or chaos in your house, you couldn't add to that, or you couldn't express your needs. You had to keep the peace, remain quiet, remain status quo, and you learn that it's not safe or it's not acceptable to have feelings or to express them. I think a lot of times too, and if you look at, some parenting styles or just society, we praise, quote, good children. Oh, he's such a good boy, he's such a good girl. Like, they're quiet, they're submissive, they don't, cause a scene, they don't express themselves. So we can internalize that and think it's not okay or it's not appropriate to share what we're feeling. If a child does express themselves or they do have an emotional outburst or they are feeling certain things, it's usually met with like punishment or criticism. So again, we internalize like it's not safe, it's not okay, it's not appropriate to share what it is we're feeling or express our needs. Another way this shows up in childhood is if you're witnessing a caregiver that's always giving and doesn't have boundaries, children model behavior. So if they think that that's what love is, or if that's how relationships are supposed to function, then that's what they're going to think. Another thing is it's kind of like an avoidant tactic. So if you're concerned about everyone else's feelings, it's a way to avoid your own. It's a way to avoid what you're feeling. For instance, like being unable to sit with the discomfort of disappointing somebody, or sit with the discomfort of letting somebody down. So I might have been so concerned about how he was feeling and, oh my gosh, he's going to be so stressed out if we refinance or if I make him sell the house. I'm so concerned about him. And it's a way of avoiding my own disappointment, my own grief, the betrayal, the abandonment, and all these things that I felt, because I can just stuff that down if my focus is on him and his feelings. And I'm completely avoiding what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling. So it's just like it's an avoidant mechanism. It's also a way of like managing someone's perception. So if you're constantly doing things for other people, and that's a way that you validate yourself, you're trying to manage how they perceive you and how they see you to avoid them having their own opinion or forming their own opinion. Again, like if your self-worth is wrapped up in providing for other people, then you're constantly going to be giving, thinking, this makes me whole. Like, this is how I feel like a better person if I'm giving and giving to other people. I think in my situation specifically, I was sitting down being like, why did I make the choice to allow him to keep my name on the house, to make the financial circumstances easier for him? That had no benefit for me really whatsoever. Like, why did I feel the need to do that? Was I really just trying to be a nice person? And why was I trying to be a nice person right after this person like really hurt me, really betrayed me? And I was thinking it could potentially have been a way for me to prove my worthiness and to prove to him, he did this bad thing. Look at me. I'm the better person in this relationship. I'm doing a nice thing for you. I'm allowing you to stay here. So it was like a way of like trying to validate my own self-worth. Like, oh, I'm the better partner. Look at me. Like, look at me. He's fucked me over and I'm still doing the right thing. I'm still being the better person. I'm still the one that's sacrificing in this relationship. I think the other reason for holding on to the tie, for some people, it might feel like a way to still stay connected with that person. But I think for me personally, buying a house was such a milestone for me, especially as a real estate agent. I've been helping people buy and sell homes for like 13 years. And, we're sold this American dream, work hard, get married, buy a house. And I think for me, letting go of the house was like I somehow like failed. And like taking my name off of it was like, well, I don't own this anymore. Like, I'm not a homeowner anymore. I can't claim that. I can't. It's like I was like falling down on some dream or life achievement, or I was like losing something I worked for, and that, I'm somehow like not as good as everyone else that's, in a relationship, that has a home, that's married. Relationships represent growth and stability, and it's a foundation for you. And when that ends, a part of that feels like it's gone, like you're losing this sense of stability, this foundation, this groundedness, and like that's what a home represents. And so having to let that go, I think subconsciously was hard for me. Like, I don't want to lose the fact that I'm a homeowner. Like, I have this label, again, this thing that like feeds my worthiness. But if you're stuck in a pattern like this, I mean, it's going to impact your life in a negative way. I mean, you're going to build resentment if you're constantly overgiving. A quiet resentment builds if you keep abandoning yourself for the sake of someone else. It's not that you shouldn't do nice things for people, but it's like, at what cost? Are you sacrificing your needs? How is it making you feel? Are you staying in a relationship or a job that isn't good for you for the sake of other people? Like, at what cost? I think it does kind of stem back to this fear of rejection or abandonment or a lack of self-worth. So many people are people pleasers because it gives them some sense of worthiness or some validation. And I do think that if we express our needs, most of us probably felt like we couldn't, or we were criticized for when we were younger or punished. We feel like we're going to be abandoned or someone's going to leave us. So maybe there was a part of me too that was like, oh my gosh, if I make him sell the house or make him refinance right away, like, he's going to hate me. And like, he already has shown that he doesn't love me because he did this awful thing. And now he's not going to love me and he's going to hate me. So it was like me trying to retain someone's love, essentially. That's disturbing. And I don't want to do that. And I don't want to live like that, because it's been emotionally weighing on me, and there's been no reason to keep this tie with somebody for this long. So how do we move forward? How can you break this pattern? I think it's really important to continually ask yourself, am I trying to manage someone else's emotional landscape? Am I trying to manage someone else's feelings, and why? Why am I doing this? So really understanding that it's not your job to fix anyone. You're not responsible for the way other people feel. You're just not. Learning to sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood or disappointing people. Everyone is in control of how they feel. So if someone is disappointed, that's on them. You can't always worry about how you're going to make somebody feel. It's okay to disappoint people. It's okay to feel guilty. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Like learning to sit in the uncomfortable feelings. A therapist told me this once: choose short-term discomfort over long-term resentment. Like, are you going to build resentment if you continue this behavior? Ask yourself, like, what is it I'm really afraid of? What are the uncomfortable feelings? Am I afraid of losing love? Am I going to be rejected? Am I going to be hurt? What's really the underlying feeling that you're trying to avoid? It's definitely a practice, and you really have to become mindful and self-aware and intentional and curious. And I am trying to become better at being really curious about why I am doing certain things. Why am I saying certain things? Why am I responding a certain way? Like, where is this coming from? What does this mean? And just trying to make that a practice in life, just becoming really curious and inquire what's driving your behaviors and choices. I think it's important in any relationship, in your job, any commitments that you have, friendships, to periodically, kind of take an inventory of, how am I showing up? How is this person showing up? Like, how are we in relation with each other? What are these underlying feelings? Do I feel drained? Do I feel energized? And what would happen if I wasn't in this job anymore, if I wasn't in this relationship anymore? How would that make me feel? What would that open up for me? The biggest thing for me too is remembering that people are not going to handle things the same way you are. You cannot expect people to handle things the same way that you would. If I am just constantly waiting for him to do the right thing, I could wait for the rest of my life. So you have to advocate for yourself and remember that your needs are important. You don't have to put people first at the expense of your peace and your happiness. And I am really late for my physical therapy appointment, so I have to end this. But thank you everyone for listening. If this resonates, leave a comment. Please share, subscribe, all the things. Thank you. Okay, bye.